All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are so pleased to have you. We know that we'll have some more people potentially come in as our session gets started. My name is Allison Lyon. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Admissions and New Student and Family Programs. So very excited to have you this evening joining us. We have a great session ahead of us with the Office of Academic Advising, talking about advisement and registration. We know that this is definitely a topic that everybody wants to know about right now in this moment as we're getting ready for spring 2021 registration. Before we get started, I do want to share a couple of different things. So first and foremost, I'm going to do some shameless plugging here. So in parent and family programs, we are here to support all of the families and supporters of our students at all points in time in their career with Georgia Southern. So of course, we have a great website for you. If you have not gotten to this website, I really encourage that you spend some time on it. You can go to this My Main Georgia Southern website and click on Parents and Families in the top right-hand corner, and it will take you to a wealth of information. But then also, hopefully, how you found out about our event. Along the left-hand side, you'll see events for family members. And in here, it talks about our Zoom sessions, which you are a part of this evening. However, we do have another one coming up on December 3rd. I want to make sure that you know about. And this is regarding health and wellness. And you're going to have a large panel, including our counseling center, student health and wellness, as well as our university medical director. And so that'll be a great one to sign up for if you haven't already. Also, if you happen to miss any of our prior sessions that we had, we do post our recordings and the slides if the presenter has those to our website so you can watch them later. So if you choose to go back and watch any that were done regarding academic success and support back in, I think that was October. And then Dean of Students and Support was also another session that we did. So I definitely encourage you to go back. Also, of course, we have a family programs Facebook page. Really encourage that you follow us there. We are starting to do a lot of different posts, wanting to engage you, hear how things are going, and making sure that we're supporting you along your journey. So, with that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about the rules for engagement this evening, but how you can help talk to us a little bit throughout this session in the format that we're in. So we are going to have a presentation. It'll be about 15 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. We've got a great group of people that are on that panel for you. So you have two options to engage, and they're at the bottom of your screen. So there's the chat feature. Shivani Patel, she's our graduate assistant for family programs. She's going to be keeping an eye on the chat. If you haven't already noticed, Shivani's already dropping links in there for you of things that we're talking about, but that's where she'll make sure to keep giving you resources that we're discussing. If you have questions that you would like to make sure that are addressed at the end of our session and asked of our panelists, you will see the Q&A feature. That Q&A feature will send that up to the panelists, and we'll make sure that we try to get to all the questions that we possibly can. But if we don't address a question, we'll make sure we communicate that to the group after the session as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our Director of Academic Advising, Jennifer Syno. She's going to be the one leading our presentation this evening, and then we'll make sure that we introduce some of our panelists as we get toward the Q&A session. So Jennifer, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Has to look at the time. Gets dark so early. I don't know if it's afternoon or evening anymore. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Syno. As Allison stated, I am the Director of Advising here at Georgia Southern. I'm so glad to be joining you today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So bear with me. Can I get some nodding that you guys see that? Okay, Allison's giving a thumbs up. So good times. Want to just go ahead and make sure to point out to the academic advising website, just like the family and parent page that Allison mentioned, is a wealth of information. We have got a lot of information for both you and your students on our advising website. So it's there at the bottom of the page. I'm sure Shivani will put it in that chat for you guys as well. So please take a look at that when you get a chance. We're going to start things out a little bit today, just kind of talking about what is academic advising. So one of the main things that I like to tell students is that advising is a two-way conversation. a student comes into advising and they are not talking with their advisor, then they're not going to get as much out of it as the student who does come in and communicate. Advisement is really meant to be guidance, right? We are here to advise you. We are not here to dictate what you do, but we're going to help you reach those goals that you may have established as a student or as your students will have established. We try to do that through creating unique pathways to graduation. Every student is different. Every student comes in with different background, different concerns and interests, and so that's kind of how we decide what do you need to do next, right? We do want students to, again, it's a two-way conversation. We want you to ask questions. You want you to be engaged. And I always encourage students to come in with a list of questions. If you have questions that you want your students to ask, have them write it down before their advising appointment and bring it in. There's no shame. We want you to get that information because we know you're our biggest supporters in helping get your students moving forward as well. So this is a partnership. We are a village. We are helping these students get to graduation together. So please send your questions with your students. I get a lot of them. My students come in and they're like, my mom wanted to know this. Great, super excited you want to know that. So we want to make sure you get that information. So pass this along. We're here to give recommendations. Again, we're not going to dictate what to do, but we've been doing this for a while. We have suggestions as to kind of what's going to be a good step for you. Sometimes it could be a group that you want to get involved in, an extracurricular activity, maybe some volunteer work that you might want to do, a place to go and apply for internships or time to go start working on your resume. We do a lot of those types of recommendations. We also do a lot of referral to helpful resources. So just like I'm going to tell you to go to career services to work on your resume, I'm going to tell you to go to the Academic Success Center when you come in and tell me you're struggling in your math class, right? So we're going to help you find where those resources are on campus. We've got a lot of students. Most of our students haven't been to college before, right? So they don't know where to go. They don't know the questions to ask. They don't know who to go to for those requests for help. We're going to help you find those people and get you in touch with the right places. We're going to help you understand the university policies. They can be confusing. They can be a little bit scary. So your advisor is a great resource to help you understand, what does that mean that I only have 6 withdrawals? What does it mean that this is the last date to withdraw? What does it mean? What does drop add mean? What are all those implications? We're here to help with backup planning. So things don't always go as planned. Sometimes the course might be a little bit harder than you thought it was. Sometimes you were in an application program that you have to get accepted into, and maybe you're not quite sure if you're going to get in. We're going to help you have backup plans. Our goal is to help you reach graduation, and we're going to have a lot of different ways to get there. So we are constantly backup planning. And the last thing I like to tell my students is that our offices are judgment-free zones. You come in here, if you've made a mistake, that's fine. We're human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're not here to yell at you. There are plenty of people in your life to do that. Your advisor should not be one of them. So we don't want to judge anything that's coming into our office, any situations. We're here to help support you through whatever you're going through. So that's kind of the overview of what we consider advising to be. But I also think it's important to know what we don't consider advising to be. So we're going to help you get to graduation, but we don't do everything. We are not experts in the fields for which we advise. So we have, an advisor may be a mechanical engineering advisor, but they're not mechanical engineers. So not necessarily the same as if you were to go to your faculty for real mentoring in your field of study. And that's really who we want you to build those relationships with. Your advisor is not an academic tutor. That's what we've got in our Academic Success Center. So a lot of students, they hear academic advising and they think, well, you can help me with this class. And trust me, honey, you don't want me helping you with your chemistry. It's not going to look good for you. We're not going to register you for your classes. So I know that sounds strange to some of you who have freshmen right now, because we did register your freshmen for their first semester. That's to make sure they get into classes that first go round. But after that, it's on the student. We want them to take ownership of their education and to make those decisions. So they're going to be registering themselves for classes. If they run into problems, if they have issues, there are people here to help them overcome those, but they're going to be the ones who actually register. It's them making a commitment to their education. But finally, we're not going to advise them about their financial aid. That's a totally separate office. And what I will say is that financial aid rules are very complex and they change often. And with everything that has to be kept up with there, you don't want me telling you about what's going to happen for Hope or with Zell or with Pell or anything like that. You need to make sure you're going to the experts for that. So we refer our students to the Office of Financial Aid for that. So your advisor is going to work in partnership with all of those units, but we're not the experts on everything. And so just some of the common areas that we get asked a lot to kind of do things that we just don't have the authority to do. So just want to put that out there, but we are going to be a big cheerleader for your students and helping them get to graduation and supporting them all the way there. So what does advising look like? So typically it's going to happen every semester. It's going to require an appointment. Usually those take about 30 minutes. We begin those early in the semester. So by this third week of classes, in the fall, we were already having appointments to register students or for advisement for the spring semester classes and summer. We're always advising for summer. So we do start very, very early because we do have a lot of students we want to advise. We want to make sure that we have opportunities to get students in well before their registration period occurs. But because we have so many students, those appointments fill up very fast. And so it's very important that you encourage your students as soon as the semester starts, really like by week 2 or 3, to be looking for outreach from their advisor. And if they don't get that outreach, they can go into their My Georgia Southern portal and go ahead and get set up with an advisement appointment. They do not have to wait on their advisor. Anytime they want to meet with their advisor, they can go in and set up an appointment to meet with their advisor at the advisor's next available opportunity. We are currently doing advising in face-to-face appointments as well as virtually, just like this in a Zoom format. We've gotten pretty good at Zoom, but sometimes if students are unable to do either of those, we have been able to work with them through other formats, phone and email. It just kind of depends on the unique situations that our students are in. And so we try to do as much face-to-face where we can see each other. We found that that has better conversations, but we will again work with students as best we can given the circumstances. We do need students to be honest. If a student comes in and everything's great and I'm getting all A's in my classes, if that's not the reality, we all want it to be the reality, but if that's not the reality, there's going to be changes that are going to have to be made in their schedule after grades process. So let's say they tell me that they're making all A's, but in reality, they're failing a class. If they're not honest with us about them, 1, I can't help get them into the support they need. And 2, I can't advise them correctly. So we really do need to be honest with each other. And this is, again, where I go back to students. We're not here to yell at you. We're here to support you, whatever that may look like. Another thing you need to know is we typically communicate by email. And that's typically to the student's Georgia Southern email address. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One is a privacy issue. We want to make sure that we are talking to the correct people and that email address is a secure device. The other thing is we are in appointments pretty much from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so if someone's trying to call or walk in and meet with us, it would be very rude for us to stop the appointment that we're in, pick up that phone and respond to that student who's calling us. And so unfortunately, that does mean that email is our primary form of communication. If a student wants to talk to their advisor on the phone, we encourage you to start with an email and let them know that that's what you're trying to do so we can make sure that we've set a time that we can arrange for that. The other thing that we're going to always do in advising is we're going to encourage your students to take 15 to 18 credit hours a semester. And that's because at Georgia Southern University, we encourage our students to soar and soar. And the reasoning is, I'm sure as supporters, you want your students out of college in 4 years. It's going to save you some money. It's going to save them a lot of time and help them get into the job market a lot faster. So common goal here. Typically, in order to do that, based on the amount of credit hours in our degree programs, 15 to 18 hours is what's going to get the students there per semester. So we work with our students to help them balance that out to find balance between classes. So we're not going to tell a student unless they are in a certain major that would require 18 hours of science classes. We're not going to do that. We're going to balance things out. And so, for instance, your first semester as a student, we typically told them, take an English, take a math, take a science, take a social studies, and take some other content class that you're interested in. That balances things out a little bit to something they're comfortable with and it doesn't feel as overwhelming. We also try to balance based upon their interests, their skills, what they feel like they're strong in. And we try to work that as best as we can. We can't always, depending on the student, but we do work very hard to try and make that happen. The 15 to 18 hours oftentimes sounds very scary, but I want to show you a little bit of data from the University System of Georgia showing why we do this. And so if you look through there, these are graduation rates for the University System of Georgia based upon the number of credit hours a student takes in their first semester at the university. So if a student comes in at 12 hours, that's their first semester. 12 hours is the bare minimum to be full-time. Over a 6-year period, only 47% of those students graduate. Whereas if we look at our 15 hours or more, 70% do. And since our goal here is graduation, that's where we're going. So we want to really help encourage our students. It kind of goes back to that concept of the kind of keeping busy, making sure that you're doing the time management. It actually works really well in the favor of our students. But just because I like to brag a little bit, I might be competitive. At Georgia Southern, we actually do even better than at the state level. If our students over the course of their first 2 semesters, so looking at spring or fall and spring semesters, take 30 hours, so 15 in each semester, 75% to 80% of them are going to graduate in that 6-year period. So we actually do better than the state average does. So we're really proud of that. And this is why we help encourage our students to take that 15 to 18 hours. It's got a proven record of success. So really, I know it sounds hard, but we work with our students to support them through that. All right, so one of the things that I do like to point out to supporters, because it can be hard as students go away to college, is that you have a very important role in this process, and I don't think that can be ignored. So what we consider, I consider our supporters to really be the helpers in this partnership, and I love cheesy little acronyms, so that's kind of why this is organized the way it is. I know a lot of these things mean the same thing, but bear with me. When I noticed I could spell helper, I got a little excited. So our asks for you are to help your students establish realistic goals. Some of them are in classes that don't have attendance policies. A realistic goal might be being to class 5 minutes early, even though no one's checking on you. Or being, I'm going to go work out once, twice a week or something. That's a lot to me. That's not realistic for me, but for some people it is. So some of those things, helping them establish what is realistic. We have a lot of students who come in and it's going to be, I'm going to graduate with a 4.0. And that's realistic for a lot of students. But we also want you to think smaller things too, not just those giant pieces. And so helping them break down to what could be a realistic first semester goal or second semester goal as they're transitioning into their college experience. We're asking you to help empower your students. So a lot of things that we have found with our student population is that they sometimes struggle to learn how to ask the questions, and they are used to relying on other people to ask their questions for them. And so we're asking you to help us teach them how to make those asks, how to advocate for themselves. Sometimes it's coaching them through how to maybe have a conversation that can be a little bit more challenging. Having them send that email that is asking for help or is even stating a complaint. I don't mind hearing those. So putting that out there and giving them the opportunities to practice those skills so that when they graduate, they are really in a place to advocate for themselves afterwards. As a parent, I know my biggest struggle right now is listening to my son when he comes in and says that there's a problem. I immediately go into I have to solve it mode. And so for me, one of the things that I do ask of parents is to really just be a listening ear and not always go into the solving mode. You'll find that your students are going to be a lot more open and honest with you if when you just listen to them. And I know this is not parenting advice you guys need, but just as an advisor, this is one of the things that we have often found from our students in our conversations with them is that sometimes they're afraid to have those challenging conversations with their parents. And so if you build that relationship of listening through the smaller things, when it becomes more challenging academically, they're very comfortable coming to you with those. And so those academic struggles may come. We don't want them to, but having that foundation is really helpful. Providing support for their goals, that kind of builds into establishing the goals. So helps provide the support, encourage them, you've done this their entire lives. Continue to support them and encourage them through Be That Cheerleader, but refer them back to us if you have questions. If they have questions, we are here to help them. So that's kind of my big cheesy helper. Yay. We can't do this without you guys. And so we're really thankful for you. And we just really hope that you can continue that partnership with us. One of the ways to do that is to have the conversations with your students about their academic progress. And some of that can be done through just discussing their program of study and how they're progressing in it. So this is an example of a program map. It actually happens to be a modern languages one. Hopefully that doesn't stress anybody else too much when they see all of the foreign language requirements of this. It's not that scary. Just a random one to show you how we track student progress to graduation. It does map things out from a semesterly basis and provides them one of many pathways to graduation. We've got a lot of students and supporters who see this and they think this is the only way to get to graduation in 4 years. It's not, but it's one of many pathways. And so it gives an example of how it can be done. One of the things I do want to point out on here is that your student and the advisor are going to go through this every appointment. It's going to get updated every semester with the grades and the progress that they're making. So it's almost like a checklist for those of you who are to-do list people and you like the feeling of satisfaction, checking something off. That's kind of how this can operate for you. Ask your students to see it. Talk to them about what they're doing, how they're progressing through it. Have those conversations. It can really be a really enlightening process. The last thing I want to put out on the program map is there are milestones and tips on here to help students as they move forward. And we really encourage students and parents to pay attention to these and keep track of these. This is how you're going to know if you're starting to fall behind a little bit in your progress to graduation. So you're not hitting a milestone, that may be a conversation you need to have with your advisor to figure out how are some opportunities that we can catch up. Do I need to take a summer class? Do I need to go and sign up for an extra activity here to get some service hours in because my major requires that? The tips are just helpful things to help make you more successful in college. So in this one, it's identify a faculty mentor. A mentor in your department can take you so far, and it's such a good resource for you after graduation as well. So we encourage things like that all the way through the process. But keeping aware of your students' program map can help you in those conversations and help you understand kind of what's coming from the advisors as well. The last thing I do want to mention, because I do know there's a lot of questions about what the spring semester looks like. So I want to just put it all out there, then you guys can hit us with the hard stuff at the question and answer session. But there's 3 ways for students to find out what their spring semester classes are going to look like. The first one is if you go to the course search website, it's just coursesearch.georgiasouthern.edu. That'll allow you to search for the classes that you are interested in taking for the upcoming semester. If you click on the course that you're interested in, you'll see an area that says additional information. That can outline how that course is going to be offered. So if it's going to be a course that's going to be a face-to-face class, but it's going to be subsectioned and it's going to be group A comes on Monday, group B comes on Wednesday, you'll find that information in there. Another way to do it, we're encouraging all of our students, is if you don't understand what's there, you don't see anything there, you want to know more, email the professor. They're going to be the best information about what the course is going to look like. They want to make sure students have this information too. We want to make sure everyone knows what they're walking into on their first day of classes. So if you're not sure, email the professor of record on the class. But we're also going to be opening up folio courses for the classes, for the spring classes a little bit earlier. So students that starting November 30th will be able to go in and start looking at some of the resources in the class. One thing that's going to be in there should be some information from the professor about how that class is going to be structured and run. So for more information, you can check there. The problem with the folio method is you're not going to have the access to that class unless you've already registered for it. So check out steps 1 and 2 if your students haven't registered. And then once they're registered, you can do some confirmations in that 3rd step there. The other thing I do want to mention is there are always questions, there's always concerns. You guys are passionate about your students. We want to be here to help you. So please bring any of those concerns to us. We want to answer your questions. We want to help you overcome whatever challenges you're facing. So you can email us at advising@georgiasouthern.edu. We have a help ticketing system that students can go into their My Georgia Southern portal under their Advising Resources tab. You'll see over here on this picture, there's a link that says My Help where they can fill out a ticket, and that'll go to our advisement staff. They can use our live chat system on our Advising Center website, or they can always contact their assigned advising center, and we will work with them as best we can to address any of those concerns. So we've got a lot of different ways for you guys to contact us, for your students to contact us, and we are looking forward to working with you guys and your students. So I went a little over on time. I'm sorry, but we're going to go ahead and transition over to the Q&A panel. I will stop sharing my screen.
So if we can, before we get started, I do see I have a couple questions that are coming in. So make sure you utilize that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can submit a question for the panel to answer, and we'll make sure that we ask that question. But first, I think it might be helpful for us to make sure we introduce, we've got Jennifer, of course, who just chatted with us and gave us an amazing presentation. It was worth the amount of minutes. But I think I'd like to make sure that we introduce our other panelists on the call. So I think we'll start with Nikki, if we can.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Warner, and I am an academic advisor on the Armstrong campus, and I advise for students who are undeclared, as well as students within the College of Science and Math.
Hi, everyone. My name is Audra Taylor. I am Assistant Director of Academic Advising, based primarily on the Armstrong campus.
All right.
I guess I'll go. Hey, everyone. My name is Cesar Maceda. I am an academic advisor on the Statesboro campus. I currently advise communication studies and multimedia journalism students. And I am your students' biggest cheerleader.
Has a lot of energy, and I greatly appreciate that, especially at 6:30 at night. So we have a couple questions coming in, and don't all chomp at the bit to answer it, but whoever wants to take it can. So our first question for you all is, what is the deadline for next semester registration? So is there a deadline of when a student has to register by?
I can go ahead and take that one. That's a really good question. This is a question we get a lot from incoming students and current freshmen. So there's not technically a registration deadline until the spring semester begins. And then students have the first 4 days of the semester to adjust their schedules so they can add a class, drop a class up through the first 4 days of the semester. So I think in the spring, it's going to be the 14th, January 14th. Is that correct? Add drop. So technically, if you're looking for a registration deadline, it would be the add drop deadline, which is January 14th. However, I will say, although students have until then to register and add drop, classes are filling up quickly. So I never encourage students to wait until that week to get registered for spring. So really, the sooner that they can register, the better.
Great. And I've asked if Shivani can. She's going to drop for you all in the chat a quick link to our academic calendar that has the reminder of those important dates and deadlines, especially for add drop period, since that's so important to know. All right, here's the next one. Question about electives. Is it best to choose classes within your major for electives, or can you choose from other areas that you might just have a personal interest in for something different?
I guess I can take that one. That's a really good question, and it depends very strongly on your student's major. So there are really two types of electives. We have what's called free electives, and those can be anything. Those can be any course that the student is interested in, whether it's inside the major or outside the major. But not all majors have room for free electives. So that's why it's really important for your student to understand their program map and the requirements, and to discuss that with your academic advisor, because the other type of electives that some majors have are called guided major electives. And those typically have to be chosen from a list determined by that major, by that program. So it can't necessarily be whatever the student is interested in. So If there's room for free electives, then the student can take whatever they're interested in. Otherwise, it has to be a little bit more focused. But that's certainly a conversation that the student can have with their advisor.
Great, thank you. So the next question might be something that's just currently happening for this student that they kind of have a question about, but their son already registered last week. Yay, go son. And one of their courses has already shown up in Folio, unlike their others, and has assignments currently showing for this semester. So they're wondering if something accidental might have happened there, if you have any context.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. So sometimes when they open up courses in Folio, the assignments from a previous version that they kind of copied over to help form the shell of that course comes with it. And so there may be some assignments in there. Don't stress over those. Don't worry. Have a look at them, because that's going to probably be something similar that you do moving forward. So it gives you a feel of like, am I going to like this class? Can't always do something about it. Might be the only thing, only one you can take, and it's, that's what it is. But it can be a good little insight, but don't stress about that. There's nothing that needs to be done yet for that spring semester class. That won't start until January. So there's no reason to worry about that.
And always consider too, if the student maybe wants to go ahead and start establishing that relationship with the faculty member, which is always really great, they could send them an email and just say, hi, I want to introduce myself. I see your folios live. I see some content. Am I still okay to be making sure I wait till spring? And it might just go ahead and open up the conversation with their faculty member, which is really good. Another question we received, it says a student is virtual from home, so they're about 4 hours away, but has assigned courses with labs. Should these classes be changed?
So that can depend. Some of our classes with labs are being taught online. Some of them are not. So I think the first key component is this going to be a section of lab that's available online? And if it's not, and it's not something that you can make the commute for that day of class, 4 hours seems like a lot for a day of class to turn around and come back. But to each his own. So if that's not functional or something that you can work with, and definitely talk to your advisor. One of the things to consider is that, depending on your major, that delaying a class can actually delay graduation. And so while we encourage students to make smart choices right now and to pick the format for classes that are going to work best for them, also recognizing that there may be consequences for some of those decisions. And so if you can't take a class that you have to take this semester, then it may mean that your graduation will end up getting delayed, or that you're going to have to take summer classes or something along those lines to kind of make that up later. So I don't want to scare anybody, but just also be very realistic about what the implications could be. And so again, have that conversation with the advisor to determine, if you're not going to be on campus, is this feasible for me to delay if I need to?
Great. So sticking with the trend of science, with science classes, is it required that you take the lab the same semester you take the main class? So for example, biology and biology lab. They do not seem to be connected in content or teaching, so is not sure, and the number of hours sometimes is a problem.
Well, in most cases, yes, they do need to be taken in the same semester. It depends on the science and the science lab, but sometimes what happens is that the lab isn't even its own grade. It's part of the lecture grade for the course, so it's required that the student takes them both at the same time. And typically the way the registration system is set up, your student won't be able to register for one without the other. So they are linked. There are a few sciences where that's maybe not true, or maybe the lab is optional. Again, that's a conversation the student can have with their advisor. But for the most part, yes, the lecture and lab need to be taken at the same time.
So the last question I'm seeing right now, so again, you can drop more questions if you have them. You have really good questions. And one just came in. See, you read my mind. Question regarding this might go back to a session we previously did regarding academic success and with the Provost Office, but we can hit on it a little bit here too, and I'll try to summarize a little bit about what was said after y'all answer. But how are you addressing the concerns from parents and students about the difficulty of online courses and the lack of help from the professors?
Okay, sorry, I forgot I had muted myself. One of the things that I will say is that we are trying to be as open and transparent with both the students, with the faculty, with parents, administrators about kind of the situations that we're in. And so when students come to us and talk about their struggles, then what we as advisors are doing is reaching out and trying to support the students as best we can. Oftentimes it's connecting them with resources, helping them find whatever that may look like for them that can help support them. Our Academic Success Center has been doing amazing work. The workshops that they're putting out, the study skills sessions they're putting out there, the tutoring that they're doing that is virtual. There's a lot of resources available to students to help them navigate. We've done sessions on how to use our online systems. We've done sessions on just learning in an online environment to kind of help them understand what are some just general skills that you need to be working on. So definitely check out the Academic Success Center resources that Shivani just put in the chat. The other thing that I would do is just to make sure that your students are in communication with their advisors or in communication with their faculty. Oftentimes the faculty don't know the student's struggling until an assignment comes in or the student says something. And so a lot of our students tend to hide the fact that they're struggling. And so we encourage them to ask questions. I will tell you, my husband is a faculty member here at Georgia Southern. His students have not been coming to his office hours. He has virtual office hours, he has face-to-face office hours, and people are not showing up. And so encouraging the students to kind of overcome that fear and going and speaking to the faculty members. And we as advisors oftentimes coach students on how to do that. Academic Success Center will do that as well. And then you as supporters, we hope that you'll help encourage that. If the students feel like they can't go to their faculty member, then that's definitely when they need to go to our department chairs or come to someone else who can help support them and help them navigate the next pathway forward. As we hear concerns, we are trying to address them. And Allison, I know you had a lot more of a conversation previously, as you mentioned. I don't know if you want to add to it from a non-advising standpoint.
Yeah, so I really encourage, if you haven't had the opportunity to take the time to watch our recording when we did the Academic Success and with the Provost Office. Fun fact, I was in the Academic Success Center at that time, so don't be confused when you hear me introduce myself. But one of the things that we talked a lot about in that session is definitely empowering the student to try to have the conversation with the faculty member. I know when I worked in that department, I had a lot of conversations about just drafting an email and helping them of what could that say to even start the conversation or visiting their office hours. But one of the things, if the student takes those necessary steps, right, and I've talked to my faculty member, I'm not resolving anything, and I've gone to the department, the Provost Office very willingly in that last session said, have the student email the provost email account. So it's provost@georgiasouthern.edu. They will try to connect the student and help them out as much as possible. But part of that is also making sure the student is taking advantage of support resources that are available to them outside of the classroom. Because it's kind of that takes a large village for a student to be successful, but making sure that that student takes advantage of what is available to them as well. Awesome. So next question. I like this one. Does the student keep the same advisor the whole time they are at Georgia Southern?
So I will say, and if I can answer this, it depends on their major. There are some colleges where, so me, for example, I advise multimedia journalism and communication studies. I see those students through their entire program. So from when they're freshmen all the way through to graduation. There are some colleges that will split the population. So they'll have one advisor for freshman students, one for sophomores, and so on. So I think it depends on the college that the student is part of.
One thing I do like to point out, because we do want to have students build that relationship with an advisor and have an advisor for as much as possible. We just found that that was really a good thing. But when the students change their major, that also oftentimes means that they change their advisor. So we have over 100 programs at Georgia Southern, and our advisement team is really not in a situation to be experts on all of them. And so we are very much focused in areas. So usually you've got, if you leave, like for instance, in Waters College of Health Professions, As long as you stay in the Waters College of Health Professions, your advisor should not change unless somebody leaves and takes another job, goes out on maternity leave, something along those lines. So without those, if the student stays in the same major, yes, but if they leave their major, then they oftentimes will change their advisor as well. So that's kind of the reason that you would see a shift.
Great. So the next question that came in is a little bit about grades and I think Jennifer, you mentioned earlier, making sure that students were honest about how they're doing, but what if they aren't sure how they are? So mentioning that some faculty, I think we know, will post grades as students go, but some don't. So how are they supposed to know how well they are doing? And how can they expect to figure those different components out?
Well, Jennifer may have more to add to this, but I was just going to say it goes back to a lot of what Jennifer already said about speaking to the faculty and going to those office hours. That's a really, really important thing, is making sure your students understand what those office hours are for. They don't have to have an appointment. They can simply just, if it's virtual, they can just log into the Zoom. If it's in person, they just show up to the instructor's office and say, hey, I'm concerned about how I'm doing in this class. Can we talk about my grades? That's absolutely something that they can ask the instructor. And again, if they feel like the instructor is not responsive to them, if they're not holding office hours, again, there's that chain of command that Jennifer and Allison talked about, going to the department chairs. And those are the sorts of things that advising can help with the student navigating sort of that chain of command. But first and foremost, we really want our students to build that faculty relationship and be able to approach their faculty member and say, let's talk about how I'm doing. Jennifer, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to just asking the question, right? And so again, we've got our office hours, but sometimes if it's, something that you're 4 hours away or you're in a different time zone and it's not working out, you're in class during office hours, email that professor and just say, I was going through, I'm trying to figure out where I stand in the class. I'm struggling to find it, to find grades or something along those lines. Can we find a time to talk through some of that? Or can you let me know, like, maybe I'm not finding the grades. There's a lot of different ways that they can go and have that conversation. But again, if they can't do it face to face, they can't do it through Zoom, even just an email can go a long way in helping get that answer.
So I do not see any other questions in my chat at this time, but I did not know if from our panelists, if there are things that this has made you think, oh, I want to leave this like parting great wisdom, advice, or things that you're currently seeing. I know we've got 2 of our advisors that are on the ground advising right now on this call. So thank you, because I know it's a very busy time of the year. But any advice or tips that you all might want to give as we wait to see if any final questions come before we wrap up.
I would just say, just tell your students not to be afraid to reach out to their advisor if they have questions about anything, even if they feel like it's a silly question. I mean, that's what we're here for. We want to support them. We want to help them. Even if it's not a question we can answer, we can always refer to the proper department, to the proper person. And so that's just something that I always encourage my students, just don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or concerns.
So as we wrap up this evening, I first want to say thank you to those of you that joined us, and thank you so much to Jennifer and our panelists for joining us this evening. I know it was invaluable information, and I'm very excited that we'll get to publish this on our website. So if you need to refer back at any point in time, I'll also make sure I have Jennifer's slides on our website. But of course, again, a plug for any of our future sessions, please make sure that you sign up for those and attend. But also, you'll be getting an email from us after this session asking you for feedback and what you enjoyed about the Zoom session and maybe future sessions and things you would like for us to offer as we go into the spring semester. This is our first semester offering Zoom sessions, I think in a post-COVID world. We're all hitting those first in Zoom, but they've been really successful so far. And we don't see this going away anytime soon. An easy way for us to reach us wherever you are this evening. So thank you all so much for joining us. It was great having you this evening, and we hope to engage with you all more soon. Thank you.